Sakeenah homes changed the shelter system from what it had always been to what they saw clients and residents needed. Through Zena's tireless effort and dedication, Sakeenah Homes has assisted thousands of women and children across Canada with shelter, housing, legal advice, mental health counseling, reconciliation, and anything else that they may require. Recently, due to the influx of Muslim children in care, they launched a campaign to open the first group home for Muslim youth. They not only see children in care, but also have been dealing with cases of sex trafficking. Zena has made an incredible impact on our community, providing service to its most vulnerable members. Please welcome Zena Chaudhry.
For me, I think one of the biggest things that I've learned, and I'll get to how I got to where I am today, but I think one of the biggest things that stands out to me time and time again, and I think on a daily basis when I do this kind of work, is how important our community is. How important every single one of us are in eradicating problems that affect us as Canadians, as Muslims, as people of color, as minorities, whatever it may be. Any issue that affects one of us affects all of us. If one part of us is hurting, everyone is hurting. And if we work together, that's the only way we can actually get rid of these issues in our communities. So, growing up, I never thought I would do this kind of work. I think even 10 years ago, I never thought I'd do this kind of work. I always wanted to be a police officer, and my dad was like, no way, no how. As a Muslim girl, you're not becoming a police officer. There's going to be like a bigger target on your back than there already is for police officers. So then I was like, okay, fine, I'm going to be in the army. And he was like, no. You need to reroute your thinking here. How are you going to get rid of problems and not just go there and act on reactive sources? So I thought. And I said, okay, you know what? I'm going to go to law school. And he's like, okay, that seems more along the lines of what I was thinking. So I ended up, after doing my undergrad, going to the UK, and I got my Master's of Law degree in human rights law. So coming back after just over a year, coming back to Canada, I was sitting at home and not working or anything. So I was like, I'm finally back home in Canada, and I'm going to relax. I'm going to spend time with my parents. And then my mom and my dad were like, so what do you do with your life now? And I was like, well, I thought I'd just hang out here for a while and really relax after being away and having to cook for myself and clean. And they're like, no. What are you going to do with with your degree now? You have to do something for the community. So with my cousins, we started every other month making care packages for the homeless in downtown. So we'd make sandwiches. In the bag, we put blankets, socks, sanitary supplies, anything that we could think of that they might need on the street, and then a pamphlet that we made with all the homeless shelters in the areas, any food banks that we could think of, and we would have them in the bags and hand them around downtown Toronto. So every other month there would be like 5 of us with like 10 bags on each arm, just like waddling down the street trying to find people to give these bags out to. That lasted for about a year and a half. We still do it, not so often anymore because we all have busy schedules now. But then after that, unfortunately, in my family itself, there was a case of abuse. And unfortunately, we were related to the abuser. We found out this case actually through the wife of one of my cousins. And she reached out to us and said, this is what's happening. This is what has been happening. And we were in the dark about this. We had no idea this was going on. No one in the family knew that this was happening. It was all behind closed doors. And in, I think, the pursuit to help her, which my mom encouraged me to do, she said, do this. And I was like, I don't think they need my help. There's a lot of things in the community. The government will provide stuff. There's a lot of shelters out there. She's going to find all the help she needs. Like, I don't really want to get involved with family things. And my mom was like, no, you should talk to her, help her, be there for her. So I said, okay. And I think through the pursuit of helping her get through the issues she was facing, which was applying for legal aid, which was going for mental health counseling, which was finding housing, which was going through all these processes that take a lot of time and energy out of someone who's already been through a lot. Through that, I found what a lack of resources there are, not only for Canadians, but in specific for Muslim women and their children. So through this, I thought, you know what, we have to do something for the women and the children of our community. Thankfully, at that time, I saw an organization was thinking of starting shelters. And I said, great, I'm gonna throw my hat in the ring. I have no experience working in the shelter setting at all, outside of what I've seen when we were handing out bags to the homeless in downtown. But other than that, I've never worked in a shelter setting. I come from a law background. You know, let me throw my hat in the ring. Maybe I'll end up volunteering with them. Alhamdulillah, I ended up getting the job. From there, we created a branch of the organization that really sought to create homes in which we could help women and children when they needed us, whether that was through immigration issues, abuse, refugee status, asylum seekers, however it came to be that they needed help, we were going to help them. I stayed with that organization for 2 years, and finally I ventured out and started Sakeenah Homes. And Sakeenah Homes was started because of an extra need I saw. So while we were providing shelter and we were providing casework and helping finding legal resources, we weren't addressing a very, very, very large part of the population. And that was women and children who are going through issues who, one, could not move into the shelter because of geographical issues. Two, did not need to move into the shelter because they had family or friends who were around that could help them, but they did need guidance on how to apply for legal aid, how to apply for housing, but they did have a roof over their head. And the other thing was women who did not feel safe because they had already lived in a shelter environment and were abused in that environment. So remote casework was something that I thought really needed to be done. So when I left my job, for a year, through my own savings, I started Sakeenah Homes. And I would get calls on my personal line any time of the night, which I still do. But at that time, any time of the night, I would get calls on my personal cell phone saying, I know of someone, a member of the community gave me your number, and this woman is in a shelter, but she can't stay there anymore. She needs help. And I would call up a hotel or a motel and say, listen, I need, a room for a week or 2 weeks, and we need to house this woman, and I'll come in right now at 2 a.m., and my mom is sitting there saying, I know. I'd be gone at 2 a.m. texting my family, be like, guys, I left the house, but I'll be back in an hour. If I'm not back, then worry. So I'd go, we'd settle them in, get them hot food, get them some groceries, and then say, okay, I'll come back in the morning, and I'll see you then, and then we'll go through what the plan is. Like what we're going to do with your casework, we'll go through that at that time. So I did that for about a year on my own. And then I thought, I really need to organize this. I need to ensure that we are providing the best care possible in an organized fashion. And that's when I put together a board of directors, and we incorporated Sakeenah Homes, and then alhamdulillah, we got charitable status as well. After that, on a yearly basis, we see more than 1,500 women and children across Canada, and now in some states in the US. So effectively, we are the largest sheltering project in Canada. And that's, I don't think something that's unfortunate, I think, that we need this much help. But our goal here is not to be reactive. Us having transitional homes and shelters, us providing these services, these are all reactive services. The problem has already been created. The women and the children have already gone through the trauma. We need to be proactive. We need to have workshops. We need to have awareness sessions. Before people get married, they need to know what their rights and responsibilities are as Muslims, as spouses. What are they getting into? And this is where we see the biggest issue is this miscommunication and these expectations that the other party doesn't know about. So for us, the proactive part is a really big piece of everything that we do. And I think that every organization should look at as well. Just yesterday, we held an awareness session on human trafficking in the Muslim community. Human trafficking, specifically sex trafficking, has grown exponentially in Ontario. The Muslim community accounts for more than 35%, not only of children trafficked, but of the Johns and of the pimps. So not only are our children being trafficked, but we are also the ones buying those children. We're also the ones selling those children. And this is something that our community has put our heads in the sand for way too long and said it doesn't affect us, but it does. It affects us to an extent that we can't even imagine. The person that you pray next to every single night might be someone who's homeless, might be someone who's going through abuse and they can't talk about it. Our own community is suffering, and we think about others, and we create a distance between us and the people going through issues, and we say, oh, poor them. Well, you know what? They're part of our community, so poor us that we haven't been there to help them. Because if we take a stance that's strong enough, it won't be that case anymore. If we talk about these issues, which is mental health. I mean, Sakeenah Homes, just last month, along with Ask Foundation, we launched a free mental health program. Free mental health counseling for anyone and everyone. You need mental health counseling and you can't afford it, we're going to give it to you for free. You know, you make $20,000, you make $50,000, you make $60,000 a year. We're going to give you this mental health counseling for free, no matter where you are. We have clients from Egypt, from the US, from India, from Australia, from all over the world who do remote counseling with us because they can't afford it, or they cannot let their spouse or an abuser know that they're going for this counseling. And these are the kind of issues that we see day in and day out. One of the most difficult things, I think, for me to get to where we are today with Sakeenah Homes, and I can't take credit for what Sakeenah Homes is and what we've become. It's the board of directors, it's our volunteers, it's the employees that we have, it's, you know, our supports, my family, my sister, this bug inside my head that always tells me just do something more, do something greater, do something bigger. There's so many people out there that need your help and you're not even getting to 1% of them. What Sakeenah Homes does and has become is something that is unfortunate. It's unfortunate that we need to open a new transitional home every year. It's unfortunate that we need a group home for Muslim youth in Ontario. That there's so many Muslim youth in CES care, and we have 5 Muslim foster families. And these are our children, this is our youth, that's going to be the future of our communities. And they are living in non-Muslim homes. They are around alcohol, they're around pork, they're around nudity, and we haven't done anything for them. I encourage everyone to go out to a foster family session. Even if you just sign up, you might not ever have to take in a foster child. But in an emergency scenario, if you can open your doors for 1 or 2 nights and help this child in their time of need, and these kids sometimes are as young as like newborn babies, and help these kids in their time of need, that's going to be the greatest thing that you can do for this child. One of, I think, the cases that really affected me early on when I worked with Sakeenah Homes was, and I think this is the case actually that brought my family to understand what I do. Because for a long time, it was 24/7 for me. I get calls at 11 a.m., at 2 a.m., at 3 a.m. At any time of the day, any time of the night. I missed, I think, family weddings. I missed family dinners. I wouldn't see my parents. Even though I lived with my parents, I wouldn't see my parents for days on end. Because I'd be out of the house, running around and doing things. I think one of the cases that really helped my family understand what I do and kind of soften them up to my hours, per se, is a case that I still believe strongly to my core is, when I think about it, is the one thing that keeps me going on those days that are so hard. Because in this line of work, you have, out of 365 days, you have one good day. And that's going to be the day that a woman gets housing. Or that's maybe the day the woman gets approved for welfare. Or she gets, like, you know, something good comes out of it, eventually. And that's always our goal, that eventually something good comes out of this. So I was at my sister's house for a dinner, and I got a call. And it was a number I didn't recognize, and I was like, you know what, I'm just going to eat really quickly, and then I'll call them back. And as I was putting in my food, the same number called again. And I was like, okay, you know what, let me just finish putting my food in, put my plate down, and I'll return this person's call. And not even 3 seconds later, I got a call again. I said, you know, I'm going to take this call now. So I go into the washroom, and I take the call. And it's a woman, and she says, is this Sakeenah Homes? And I said, yep, this is Zena speaking. How can I help you? And mind you, this is about 7 or 8 p.m. at night. And she said, I need help. And I said, okay, like, is this like an emergency? She's like, well, I'm sitting on a curb on the side of the road. I'm caked in blood. And I have my 2 sons with me, my 2 young sons. And I said, okay, I'm coming. Give me the major intersection of where you're at. So I left my food, I left my sister's house, and I drove over. And as I pull up to where she's sitting, like, my headlights hit the side of the curb, and I see her sitting there literally caked in blood. and one son on her lap sleeping and one on the grass next to her sleeping. So I pull up and I say, I'm Zena, you just spoke to me. Why don't you guys get in and let's go get something. So we went to the closest hotel. I got them a room for a week, put them upstairs. She washed up, the kids washed up. We got some food and the kids went to bed, and then me and her met in the sitting area. And that's when she told me what had happened. So she had gotten married just 8 years prior to that. She got married, and on her wedding night was when the first event of abuse took place. She jokingly said to him, they were joking around, they were talking, and she jokingly said to him, like, how lucky are you that you married out of your league? And he slapped her across the face. And she thought, you know what, okay, well, he was not, he was upset about that. She told her mom the next day, and her mom said, listen, it might have just been a bad day. Just, it's the start of a new marriage. You guys don't know each other that well. It's a new relationship. You're going to get to know one another, and it's going to work out. So she said, okay. She, months later, moved to Canada. He was a Canadian citizen, so he sponsored her. She moved to Canada. A few months after that, she got pregnant with her first child, and she was excited. And she was like, this is going to change things. Until then, she was being abused every Friday. Without a doubt, every Friday she was abused. And he would return home from Jummah. He would recite Surah Kahf, and he would beat her. Every Friday. And she would always call her mom and say, I can't do this. I want to come back home. Send me money. Let me come back home. And her mom would say, listen, there's nothing for you here now. We can't take you. No one's going to marry you as someone who's divorced. And your dad can't bear the burden. We're still paying off your wedding. Your dad cannot bear the burden of having you move back home now and supporting you for the rest of our lives. And she said, okay. So when she got pregnant with her first child, she's like, this is great. The abuse will stop. We're going to be a happy family. And things are going to look a lot brighter from now on. Unfortunately, the abuse did not stop. Her first child was born, and not even a year later, I'm trying to think of the kids' ages, not even a year later, she was pregnant again, this time out of rape from her husband. So she was pregnant again, and she said, I don't even want this, I can't imagine bringing another child into this house of horror. But her husband said, well, what are you going to do? You can't abort the child. You got to live with me. You got to live with the situation now. So she had her second child. And the abuse continued. Every Friday, the abuse continued. And sometimes it would be like a smack here or there on a regular basis other than Friday. But the Fridays were, she said, the worst. She said the day that should have been the best for her as a Muslim was the worst day of the week for her. The day that she dreaded the most. Her kids looked forward to Friday because, we get to come home from school and it's a weekend, we get to sleep in. And she's like, that's it, one day I would just hope that would never come in the whole week. 1 year, when her kids were 6 and 5, her in-laws visited from Pakistan. So her husband worked from home. He worked from the basement. He had a basement office, and she was on the main floor with her mother-in-law. She was cooking, and her mother-in-law was at the dining table. And the mother-in-law said something along the lines of, you know what, we've been noticing that you don't cook food properly. You don't cook the food that my son likes. We're going to have to train you how to become a better wife. And she said something along the lines of, I'm not a dog that you can train, but your son seems to love my food. He's been eating it for years, and he's never mentioned anything. So what is there something that I made wrong yesterday that's causing you to say this? And the son heard this, or her husband heard this, comes from downstairs and just starts hitting her, pounding on her. The father-in-law, she said, she can hear him rush downstairs. And she's like, all she can hear is her mother-in-law saying, go, go, go. Keep going. And so the son, he actually grabbed her hair and smashed her face against the glass of the oven door. And that smashed. And all she could remember is that one day when she told her mom how bad the abuse was, her mom said, just pretend like you've passed out or that you're dead. And he'll stop. No one's going to abuse a dead body. And she said, that's all I could think about. And that's what I did. I pretended like I was dead. She's like, I was not breathing. I did not let them see that I was breathing, very, very small breaths. And she's like, I stopped moving, I stopped screaming. And she's like, to this day, I can't get the voice of my father-in-law out of my head. And he said this in Punjabi, but also in English. He said, well, now that she's dead, how are we going to hide her body? And she said, from that day, I realized that no matter what I did, these people wouldn't care. They'll kill me and they won't care. So why am I still in this situation? So she said, thankfully, at that time is when her kids from school, their carpool would come. So she's like, I heard the door open. I could hear them around me cleaning, like mopping up all the blood and everything. She's like, I heard the door open from the front door and the kids coming in. I gathered up all the energy that I could and I ran out the door with my kids. And that's the day that she called me. And since then, alhamdulillah, we've gotten her housing. She has a full-time job. Her kids are in school. And she's, self-sustainable. She can take care of herself. But this is one case out of thousands that we see. And this is like, we've had a woman, 84 years old, call us, who was sexually abused by her son-in-law. We've had a girl, 14 years old, call us, that since the day she turned 5, that she can remember, she's been sexually abused by her father and her brother. These are the cases that we see every day and we turn a blind eye to. The rate of assault, of abuse, of poverty is astounding in Canada. And as a Muslim community, we are not immune to it. We cannot sit there and be like, oh, we take such good care of our community. Because these are parts of our community. And these are parts that we haven't addressed. And as a community, this is what we need to do. Regardless of our ethnicity, of our religion, of our race, of our sect, of whatever it may be, these are people that go to the same grocery store as us. These are people that have rights over us as our neighbors. And in Islam, we need to protect these people, no matter who they are. And this is someone that's close to us. They're like Muslims in the Canadian community where we live, within a 50-minute radius of us. And we haven't been able to help them. And I always say this, the more you talk about an issue, the easier it becomes for the community to deal with it. The more we talk about abuse and sex trafficking and assault and childhood sexual assault and mental health and counseling, the easier it becomes for the community to start softening up to that. If I'm sure my family's sick and tired of me at dinner parties now. Because I always go there and I start talking to aunties about abuse and sexual assault, and they're like, no, it doesn't exist in Canada. We have to send our money back home and help. And I was like, are you? And then I sit down and tell stories, and I'm sure my family's like, we've heard this one. But that's who I am at parties now. I'm the one who's the Debbie Downer, because this is our reality. And I hope one day I don't have to do this, because we've done such a good job as a community eradicating this problem that we don't have to deal with it anymore. That's 100% the goal. Right now our goal is to open these shelters, provide for these women and children anywhere we can. But in 20 years, I want to be like, this year, alhamdulillah, we shut down 3 shelters because we don't need them. Like, that should be our goal. That we should get to that point where we say that, Sakeenah Homes is not needed. Like, we're shutting down our doors. Zena's going to find a new job now. So that's what we should aim to become. And the women who are on the panel with me all strive to help these populations. Aram, she runs a Facebook group. But when women come to us and children come to us, we ask them, what's your referral source? Is it a masjid? Is it a community center? Is it another organization? You know how many times they said Muslim moms on Facebook has referred us? Or we saw someone post about Sakeenah Homes on Muslim moms? So anything you can do in the community, that's why I stand up here and I say it's not like, I've done something great. Anything you can do in the community, the smallest thing, it will make a difference. The smallest thing can make a difference. Referring one person, having our number, referring one person to us or another resource is the biggest thing you might be able to do for that person in their life. It might change their lives altogether. And I think, so for me, basically saying that, I can stand up here, that's the message I want to give. That I'm not someone that anyone, that like is amazing or has done amazing things. I'm here because of the community that we are. Because of the people that we help. It's people like all of you who have lifted us to be able to help all these people. And, what these people are going to get, their risk is written. How they're going to find the help, it's already written. We have the blessed opportunity to be those people who connect the people who help to those who need the help. And alhamdulillah, Allah has given me that opportunity, and I am grateful for it every single day that I get to do this and earn good deeds for it. But I encourage every single one of you to find resources. Even contact us, we have lists of resources. Find resources and educate yourselves about what's out there, so that if you ever know someone who is suffering, or someone else you know someone who's suffering, you have somewhere to send them. Everyone here should have a counselor or therapist. I say this everywhere I go because I believe it 100%. Whether you use that person every week, every day, every month, every year, once 5 years, once in 10 years, everyone needs a counselor or therapist. Our mental health is so important, and it gets brushed under the rug so often. And like I said, Sakeenah Homes has a free program now. Ask Foundation has a free program. If you can't afford it, contact Ask Foundation or Sakeenah Homes, and we're going to provide free counseling for you. But please, please, please get out there. Inshallah, change at least one person's life. But even just giving them a phone number, it can change everything for them. But Jazakallah khair for having me here today. I appreciate it.